Section 19 of Gray's Anatomy, Part 5. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Mark Roche. Anatomy of the Human Body, Part 5, by Henry Gray. 2G. The Small Intestine. Intestinum tenue. The small intestine is a convoluted tube, extending from the pylorus to the colic valve, where it ends in the large intestine. It is about 7 meters long. Footnote: Treves states that in 100 cases the average length of the small intestine in the adult male was 22 feet 6 inches, and in the adult female 23 feet 4 inches, but that it varies very much, the extremes in the male being 31 feet 10 inches and 15 feet 6 inches. He states that in the adult, the length of the bowel is independent of age, height, and weight. End footnote. And gradually diminishes in size from its commencement to its termination. It is contained in the central and lower part of the abdominal cavity, and is surrounded above and at the sides by the large intestine. A portion of it extends below the superior aperture of the pelvis and lies in front of the rectum. It is in relation, in front, with the greater omentum and abdominal parietes, and is connected to the vertebral column by a fold of peritoneum, the mesentery. The small intestine is divisible into 3 portions: the duodenum, the jejunum, and the ileum. The duodenum has received its name from being about equal in length to the breadth of 12 fingers, 25 centimeters. It is the shortest, the widest, and the most fixed part of the small intestine, and has no mesentery, being only partially covered by peritoneum. Its course presents a remarkable curve, somewhat of the shape of an imperfect circle, so that its termination is not far removed from its starting point. In the adult, the course of the duodenum is as follows. Commencing at the pylorus, it passes backward, upward, and to the right, beneath the quadrate lobe of the liver to the neck of the gallbladder, varying slightly in direction according to the degree of distension of the stomach. It then takes a sharp curve and descends along the right margin of the head of the pancreas, for a variable distance, generally to the level of the upper border of the body of the 4th lumbar vertebra. It now takes a second bend and passes from right to left across the vertebral column, having a slight inclination upward, and on the left side of the vertebral column it ascends for about 2.5 centimeters, and then ends opposite the 2nd lumbar vertebra in the jejunum. As it unites with the jejunum, it turns abruptly forward, forming the duodenojejunal flexure. From the above description it will be seen that the duodenum may be divided into 4 portions: superior, descending, horizontal, and ascending. Relations. The superior portion, pars superior, first portion, is about 5 centimeters long. Beginning at the pylorus, it ends at the neck of the gallbladder. It is the most movable of the 4 portions. It is almost completely covered by peritoneum, but a small part of its posterior surface, near the neck of the gallbladder and the inferior vena cava, is uncovered. The upper border of its first half has the hepatoduodenal ligament attached to it, while to the lower border of the same segment the greater omentum is connected. It is in such close relation with the gallbladder that it is usually found to be stained by bile after death, especially on its anterior surface. It is in relation above and in front with the quadrate lobe of the liver and the gallbladder, behind with the gastroduodenal artery, the common bile duct, and the portal vein, and below and behind with the head and neck of the pancreas. The descending portion, pars descendens, second portion, is from 7 to 10 centimeters long, and extends from the neck of the gallbladder on a level with the 1st lumbar vertebra along the right side of the vertebral column as low as the upper border of the body of the 4th lumbar vertebra. It is crossed in its middle third by the transverse colon, the posterior surface of which is uncovered by peritoneum and is connected to the duodenum by a small quantity of connective tissue. The supra- and infracolic portions are covered in front by peritoneum, the infracolic part by the right leaf of the mesentery. Posteriorly, the descending portion of the duodenum is not covered by peritoneum. The descending portion is in relation, in front, from above downward, with the duodenal impression on the right lobe of the liver, the transverse colon, and the small intestine. Behind, it has a variable relation to the front of the right kidney, in the neighborhood of the hilum, and is connected to it by loose areolar tissue. The renal vessels, the inferior vena cava, and the psoas below are also behind it. At its medial side is the head of the pancreas and the common bile duct. To its lateral side is the right colic flexure. The common bile duct and the pancreatic duct together perforate the medial side of this portion of the intestine obliquely, some 7 to 10 centimeters below the pylorus. The accessory pancreatic duct sometimes pierces it about 2 centimeters above and slightly in front of these. The horizontal portion, pars horizontalis, third or pre-aortic or transverse portion, is from 5 to 7.5 centimeters long. It begins at the right side of the upper border of the fourth lumbar vertebra and passes from right to left, with a slight inclination upward, in front of the great vessels and crura of the diaphragm, and ends in the ascending portion in front of the abdominal aorta. It is crossed by the superior mesenteric vessels and the mesentery. Its front surface is covered by peritoneum, except near the middle line, where it is crossed by the superior mesenteric vessels. Its posterior surface is uncovered by peritoneum, except towards its left extremity, where the posterior layer of the mesentery may sometimes be found covering it to a variable extent. This surface rests upon the right crus of the diaphragm, the inferior vena cava, and the aorta. The upper surface is in relation with the head of the pancreas. The ascending portion, pars ascendens, fourth portion, of the duodenum is about 2.5 centimeters long. It ascends on the left side of the aorta as far as the level of the upper border of the second lumbar vertebra, where it turns abruptly forward to become the jejunum, forming the duodenojejunal flexure. It lies in front of the left psoas major and left renal vessels, and is covered in front and partly at the sides by peritoneum continuous with the left portion of the mesentery. The superior part of the duodenum, as stated above, is somewhat movable, but the rest is practically fixed, and is bound down to neighboring viscera and the posterior abdominal wall by the peritoneum. In addition to this, the ascending part of the duodenum and the duodenojejunal flexure are fixed by a structure to which the name of musculus suspensorius duodeni has been given. This structure commences in the connective tissue around the celiac artery and left crus of the diaphragm, and passes downward to be inserted into the superior border of the duodenojejunal curve and a part of the ascending duodenum, and from this it is continued into the mesentery. It possesses, according to Treitz, plain muscular fibers mixed with the fibrous tissue of which it is principally made up. It is of little importance as a muscle, but acts as a suspensory ligament. Vessels and nerves. The arteries supplying the duodenum are the right gastric and superior pancreatic duodenal branches of the hepatic, and the inferior pancreatic duodenal branch of the superior mesenteric. The veins end in the lienal and superior mesenteric. The nerves are derived from the celiac plexus. Jejunum and ileum. The remainder of the small intestine from the end of the duodenum is named jejunum and ileum, the former term being given to the upper 2/5 and the latter to the lower 3/5. There is no morphological line of distinction between the two, and the division is arbitrary. But at the same time the character of the intestine gradually undergoes a change from the commencement of the jejunum to the end of the ileum, so that a portion of the bowel taken from these two situations would present characteristic and marked differences. These are briefly as follows. The jejunum, intestinum jejunum, is wider, its diameter being about 4 centimeters, and is thicker, more vascular, and of a deeper color than the ileum, so that a given length weighs more. The circular folds, valvulae conniventes, of its mucous membrane are large and thickly set, and its villi are larger than in the ileum. The aggregated lymph nodules are almost absent in the upper part of the jejunum, and in the lower part are less frequently found than in the ileum, and are smaller and tend to assume a circular